The second speaker, been tirelessly working and speaking on this issue throughout the state, and actually probably outside the state. An MBA from Wharton, he's a 30-year private investor in drilling rigs and oil and gas projects, and a former gas company manager. And he's been blowing the whistle on this industry from the inside. And it's my great pleasure to welcome to the podium Chip Northrup.
It's good to be back with Vestal. Thanks, Elaine, Sue, Isaac, and my great videographer, Bill Houston. I guess my question to you all is, why am I here? Because a year ago, I think we went through a lot of this. It's in your power to have a road use ordinance. Is there a road use ordinance there?
No.
Oh. And there's not, well, and there's no moratorium evidently, or I wouldn't be here. You really, you need to do that. That's done in other states, road ordinances, moratoriums. There's at least one moratorium in Texas and Denton. So those things are within your power to do, and whatever you take away from this or throw at me, you really need to do that. I mean, I really like coming here, but next time I come here, let's not talk about this. Let's just get it done. And frankly, if you don't have the right people to do it, then get some people, get some different people. The election's next year. And I would make the same point with your state senator. If they're not conducive to this process, then get a new one. I think this is the year to do that. Let me just out of curiosity, has anybody ever leased their land for, I'm going to raise my hand, for oil and gas? Okay, there's one. Has anybody bought an oil and gas lease? Anybody? Okay. Anybody drilled an oil or gas well? Uh-oh. I'm getting lonely up here. Anybody owned a drilling rig? An offshore rig? Anybody had somebody killed on one of their oil and gas properties? Anybody know that's had a friend injured in an offshore oil rig? Specifically the BP? No? Okay. Just checking. Anybody ever owned a vehicle that runs off of natural gas? Wow. No Texans in the room, except one. Anybody converted vehicles to run off of oil, off of natural gas? Oh. Okay. Anybody built a solar collector, sold a solar collector, installed a solar collector? Okay. Good. Okay. Anybody sued a town and overturned the town's zoning ordinance? Anybody sued a town for regulatory taking and had a taking granted at trial? Gosh. Oh well, it's lonely. Okay, let's go to the first slide. The industry basically, and by the way, anything that's in red is searchable. In other words, if you search that phrase, you'll go to a paper, a white paper or something, that's the title, and it'll give you more details about that. The gas industry is basically more or less in the same phase as the tobacco industry was, 40 years ago, whatever it was. And that is they're in a state of denial, not, the psychological connotations of that, but they're legally in denial because their attorneys tell them to deny everything. And so when you say, they hear they say, well, there's I'm not aware of any instance of contamination, Congressman. That's because their attorney told them to say that. And that's and frankly, obviously, it worked for the tobacco industry for decades. So, stick around. But that sort of explains why these issues don't get resolved, is because the other side is in abject legal denial over every point. Go to the next one, please. The other thing they've done is they managed through Chicken Hawk Cheney to basically frack the EPA out of the drilling business. I was out of the business by 2006, rig-wise, so everything I ever did was from the time Nixon created the EPA. It's the only thing he ever did is any good. until they basically took them out of it. I was regulated by it. They fracked the SEC. This is the one that Deborah Rogers talks about. The last thing that Christopher Cox, the Chicken Hawk, and George Boy did in November 2008 was they changed the rules on how you value a gas reserves for financial reporting purposes. And that's what kicked off the sort of the shale mania. It was because of the regulatory treatment of gas reserves. And there's power. Deborah Rogers is, I will go to her site in a minute, but she goes into that in detail. And frankly, if you read the 3 iterations of the S-guys, then it's safe to assume that based on the last iteration where they started and sort of the tiny incremental movement that they had, they basically fracked. We go into that in more detail, but the DEC is pretty much fracked, meaning they've been co-opted, whatnot. Go, roll. The one that fascinates me is they basically rewrite history. Even today I read somewhere, is that they say they've been, we've been doing this for 80 years and we've fracked 1 million wells. Oh, no. They're playing with words, white lie. But basically, they were trying nuclear bombs on the Manco Shale back in '69. That was the ERDA, Energy Research and Development Administration, predecessor to the DOE. I remember this project because I was in the solar business a little bit after that. Is that the government basically, and with Halliburton, had government grants how to figure out how to frack tight sands formation, which generically this falls under. So they didn't really invent horizontal hydrofracking until the 80s, and they didn't apply it in the Austin Chalk or whatnot until the late 80s. So the notion that this is 60 years old, no. And for around here, especially more germane, Pennsylvania and whatnot, it's not 5 years old. And that's important. Go to the next. Searchable, that's Deborah Rogers. This is just a real quick summary, but the fact of the matter is that, they want to get this gas out of here so fast. This notion is going to be used locally. I don't think so. They're going to sell, God bless them, they're going to sell where they get for the most money. And that means it'll be overseas. So the notion that they're going to sell it here, for whatever close they had at Henry's Hub, $2.40 or something, no. It's going to go overseas as fast as they can get it over there. The money, I've done papers on that. 85% of the money just clean leaves the state. Most of it leaves the state untaxed. None of these companies are domiciled here. I mean, they'll run their expenses up. They'll hit every Broadway show. They won't book a profit in this state. The money goes somewhere else. They'll go Oklahoma, Texas, Wall Street, whatnot. The jobs are going to go to people that know how to do this, and it's nobody in this room or in this county. It's going to go to people from Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, whatnot. They need the work. They know how to do it. Those crews are laid off. Nobody's going to get a job around here anytime soon doing this. That's just a simple fact. You can parse the numbers in Pennsylvania or whatnot, but the fact is, in a town in this state, it ain't going to happen. Not for years. That's what you get. That's the booby price. The pollution stays. The money goes, the gas goes, the jobs go, you get the pollution. Go. Oh, this is from a Halliburton presentation that was in the Oil and Gas Journal, and some guy named Scott Klein, and first time I started going to these presentations, some guy whipped this thing out. This is a Halliburton. This shows where the frack is, the depth of the frack. This is for the Marcellus, the depth of water aquifer. And they make a big deal out of it. Well, the frack is down here, and the water is up here. Well, guess what? I mean, you got to drill a big damn tube. Oh, sorry, I'm in a church, aren't I? Well, the church is over there. Big damn tube. You got to build a big tube to get down there. And then guess what happens? The tube leaks. That's for starters. The other thing is everything that goes into this thing, and most of the stuff that comes back out, ends up here. The pollution, the gas, whatever, it's all going to come back up here anyway. So the notion is down there, like, so what? The problem too is that if there's a big vertical fault and you hit it, or there's an old wellbore and you frack it, then it goes boom. Or there's a thermal spring or mineral springs. Are there any of those in that state? Saratoga, what is it, Springs? That means that that water is circulating from down here, up there. That's why it's warm. And it's got minerals in it. That's why it has minerals in it. You hit that with a frack, and then stuff goes boom. And then you're drinking it the next day. Go ahead. Now this is the problem. This is the key to the problem here, and we'll go into why this is not a problem in, Alamogordo, New Mexico. The water, you're tapping these. I asked somebody at the first presentation, I said, how deep is your well? And he said, like 85 feet. I couldn't believe it. These shallow wells are vulnerable to being polluted from both the surface, from spills, but more poignantly, they're also being prone to being polluted from the wellbore itself, not from inside the production stream, but literally from the interface between the outermost casing, the cement, and the formation, or the rock. And so if there's any gaps there, cement shrinks over time. It's thermally expanding, it's mechanically expanding when it gets fracked. It shrinks. So as cracks develop in the cement, and this is not this is not reinforced concrete with rebars in a minute. It's going to leak. I mean, they're all going to leak sooner or later. It's just a matter. I know, not Jen, not for me, lady. And so what'll happen is as soon as it hits a gas-bearing formation, it's going to start precipitate methane. It's not a big deal economically because obviously the gas never got into the production stream. It's not like it's, they're going to lose money on it. It just happens to be a vector for gas to go up into groundwater. And, in Texas, that's not like a big problem because there isn't any groundwater. Yeah. This is so bad I must have drawn it myself, but I didn't. This is a western well, like on our ranch. We'd be lucky if we have a party if we hit well water at like 1,200 feet. And what this is doing is it's basically mining water, a deep western well. And this is hard for you Yankees to believe, but we're drinking water that's been down there for like 10 or 20,000 years. Since the last ice age. And and it tastes like it. And you've got to filter it and run it through and it still tastes like it. The good news is that there is very little communication. If there are gas or oil wells, there's very little communication with that aquifer. That stuff that we saw going up the wellbore in that other picture is going, gas rises and it's going to find its way up to the groundwater to a level of saturation until it goes into the atmosphere. And then you bubble it and whatever, Josh Fox makes a movie about it. But this stuff is in effect protected. It's protected from the frack, it's protected from being polluted from the frack, and it's certainly protected from being contaminated by surface contaminants because it doesn't communicate with the surface. It's 1,000 feet down. It's in an aquifer that hasn't communicated with the surface. It's not recharged except over a period of literally thousands of years. That is the design condition. That's the hydrological design condition for how these wells were developed. That was the environment that they were developed in Texas. There's exceptions to that. And when there is an exception, they have a problem. And the problem is emblematic of the kind of problems that they have in Pennsylvania that they would have in New York, meaning a shallow water well gets polluted. This, of course, is not to scale. That's 1,000 feet and that's 100, whatever. But that's just it's a shallow New York State water well that's basically you're drinking, yesterday's rainwater. And up until now, it's like, okay. But these shallow wells are particularly prone to surface contaminants. Go ahead. This is from the Alberta. This shows that of the two measurements of gas leakage combining the two, 60% of the wells that they tested that are horizontal in Alberta were leaking. And when I say leaking, I mean that they were the evidence of methane, of elevated levels of methane, were found in the groundwater around the well. One of them measured the pressure at the Braden head on the casing of the well. The other one measured the gas migration. But the point is I should make here is that a horizontal well is 4 times more likely to precipitate methane than a vertical well. So in other words, you know, this it's not your granddaddy's oil or whatever. Well, in terms of its propensity or its ability to mobilize methane, it's not. It's a much better vector pathway to mobilize methane up into groundwater. A horizontal shale well is. In fact, it's like the ideal solution. It's the ideal way to get ethane, methane, whatever, up into groundwater. So, congratulations, Halliburton. Yeah. This is the Duke study. Basically, it shows that the level of methane is closer. The closer you get to a gas well, the higher the methane level is. And you know, this was when this came out. The EID and you know what the lobbyists said. Oh, it's you know wrong. The fact is the industry knows this. There's papers that I know. The industry not only knows this, but they sell services to prevent this from happening. Archer, well services, Schlumberger, they sell services to try and keep these wells from leaking. It's just like, you know, say that they don't leak, they know that they leak. It's just that if you're in, you know, Durango, Colorado, and you got a 1,500 foot well, the fact that the gas well is leaking is like, so what? Because you're not drinking groundwater. Go ahead. This again, I pick these catchy names of the search engine, I'll pick it up. This is basically, this goes to just a laundry list of incidences in Pennsylvania mainly, of leaks, spills, but if you think the commonality of it is whatever that happened there, whether it was methane coming up or, you know, frac truck runs over a reindeer, and then it's because it's going to end up in somebody's drinking water. If it happened in Brownwood, Texas, it wouldn't. I mean, it might make the newspapers, but it's not. Nobody's not going to be drinking it. Go. And this is and then this is basically what these lobbyists and these paid PR guys. I'm really disappointed. I was supposed to debate somebody from Chesapeake, and they never. I mean, so egotistical. I thought they were going to put some guy on a G4 and fly him up from Lawton. It was some local guy. You know, it was like such a disappointment. I mean, what I'm saying is that the local shills on this are really, they're just third rate. They don't know what they're talking about. They just bring these platitudes. But the one that gets me is they still threaten zoning. You need to read the Dryden case and the Middlefield case. The judges, both of them, conservative Republican, just threw the book at Anschutz, and then they threw the book at that gal that sued Middlefield. They threaten the takings. I know about regulatory takings. I've taken regulatory takings to the Supremes. It ain't easy. Don't go there. They talk about the closed for business. And closed for what? Closed for being fracked. And the basic, of course, the goal is, and it certainly has succeeded here, thank you very much, is to get the town to do nothing. You know, we're going to get sued. There's been a regulatory takings. We can't do anything. We can't have a road use ordinance. You know, they wouldn't like that. They'd go back to Texas. Go, next. Let's go through them. Gas well zoning. This is the way it works in every state. You know, the Pennsylvania law is being challenged. The state agency, the Mineral Management, Colorado, Railroad Commission in Texas, they regulate how the well is drilled. It has to turn to the right. The towns of you know, you name it, Flower Mound, Oklahoma City, Denver, they regulate where the well is drilled in the town. It's typically in industrial zone districts. It's typically not in residential areas. In some states, the counties can regulate that. In Mexico and Colorado, the counties do land use planning. And that's the way it is here. And you know, it didn't take the learned hand or whatever, Sandra Day O'Connor to figure that out. And that's, you know, they say, oh, it's going to be overturned on appeal. I don't think so. I don't think so. I've read it. I've read the regulations. That's what it says. How, where. Go. So don't, you know, don't use that. Don't let the elected poobahs use that as an excuse to do nothing. The other one, this one gets me. They, you know, they say, well, oh, it's a regulatory taking, you know, so if you prohibit it somewhere, well, for openers, there's never been a regulatory taking that's been sustained over a mineral rights, over a gas well, anywhere. And the ones that they point to, you know, the Anschutz was a lease. There's no regulatory taking even applied to leasehold. If you reduce the value, which arguably you might, of a mineral rights, that doesn't count. It has to be a complete loss. You know, the Supremes have looked at this a couple of times. It has to be nothing. It's got to be zero. No cow farm, no mineral entrance, no nothing. No, there's no circumstances in this state. And you know, the people like this Frakowski, this local guy, Scott Frakowski, talks about, you know, he doesn't know from takings. Come on. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not even a zoning attorney. Okay, go ahead. And this one gets me too. You know, Germany banned this stuff. Do you think Germany is closed? You know, no more Beamers for me if it is. You think they didn't look at the science? They said, well, we have to look at the science. We have to let the science decide. What do you think? You think they didn't look at the science? These dudes invented science. Or at least they learned it from the Italians and they did their homework. Did I say something? Did I say the wrong thing? You know, so you're closed. We say, yeah, you're closed. You're closed like South Lake or Grand Prairie is closed. We're closed. You can't frack a well here, Tex. Sorry. You know, they're used to hearing that. So it's not like you're going to shock them. This is my blog. This is where I kind of, you know, let my hair down. You know. Oh, I wrote this some time ago. This is, you know, okay, these are the carrots. Those are the sticks. And the carrots are, you're going to have a local property tax. And they make a big deal out of this. There's a local property tax. There's an ad valorem tax on oil and gas wells in every state, except Pennsylvania. And so it's like, so what? Yeah, I mean, that's true. But it's not like it's you know, particular to New York State. And so, yes, in fact, the wells have a very steep decline curve. It'll show up on the ad valorem tax if it's a producing well, you know, for about 36 months, basically. You can't float a bond against that. You know, you can't, like, build a new school, but it will, in fact, if a well hits, it'll show up on the ad valorem tax. I'll grant you that. Local jobs, no, sorry. Not anytime soon. As long as there's some, you know, dude down in Monroe, Louisiana that knows how to run a frack, there won't be any local jobs. Not in this state. So don't talk to me about Ohio or, you know, some junior college in Pennsylvania. It's just not, it won't be happening anytime soon. And this one is really ridiculous. I mean, this is one that even the Tea Party wouldn't believe. They're not going to protect anybody. There's only a dozen of them that are in this minerals management inspection area. That's Deborah again. You tell Deborah I said good things about her. Go. This is the Union Springs of the Marcellus. That's the state line, and I don't know, we guys are up, I don't know, we're here somewhere, whatever. This is Dimmock, but this is basically, and it thins very rapidly as you go north. Basically, you could kind of forget about anything was in aquamarine because it's too thin. That's the Marcellus. And of course, it's thickest down in Bradford County of Pennsylvania. So this is, you know, this is like news 6 months ago or a year ago, and it's not news anymore. I mean, it's like we're talking about these 3 counties here from Delaware over Chemung. That's about it. That's pretty much it. You get north of 88 in the Marcellus. There is Marcellus here, but it's a layer cake, and the oak of the layer that's above this is pretty much gray. There's just not much hydrocarbons in it. No, that was no surprise, but I mean, it puts things in perspective. if in fact there's no gas, then there is no ad valorem tax. I mean, if there's no, you know, it's got to be producing oil, so it's axiomatic that at least vis-a-vis the Marcellus, you get beyond that, there isn't going to be any big tax hit for these pretty towns in that area. Go ahead, next please. This is the Utica, and this of course is this. It's not as well known, but basically it's cooked off until you get over to the Finger Lakes, and then there may be some gas there, and it may actually be wet over towards the lake. The flip side of it is it's thick here, and it thins very rapidly as it goes west. So that by the time you get to where it might have liquids in it, it's too thin. It may be too thin to even bother to frack. Now, but this, I said this because this is, just an FYI, this is how I and our oil and gas guy looks at the world. We think of it in terms of, if you go to one of their presentations, they talk about the sedimentary layers, and then, you know, like recite them blindfolded. And they think of it in terms of what goes on subsurface. They think of the mechanics, and what they think of when they see a map of an area, they're thinking of the subsurface of it, of what it looks like. And everything on the surface is just in the way. I mean, I don't mean to be like melodramatic. It's just that when you went to Texas A&M and you got your degree, your master's degree in geology, you work for and you've been watching, looking at, run and the well logs. You just forget about it. This is what you think about. And, you know, this is also sort of a mental thing that when you see some of these presentations, the guys that actually know the industry, this is what they're thinking about. And anything else on the surface is just an impediment. And again, I'm not trying to make a sociological statement. That's just a fact. You know, everything is an impediment. And their job, the advanced men, the landmen, their job is to get rid of the impediments. Get the land from find a guy driving a buggy and a beard and lease the land from him. You know, it's not that they're evil, although of course actually some of them really are evil. It's just that's just the way they think. And that's important. And they'll say, well, you know, we're responsible and we're looking for local. No, they're not. They're looking for that stuff, God bless them. You know, that's what they're after, and everything else is an impediment. Yep. The thing about this, all these wells, by definition, in New York State, all these horizontal hydrofrac wells, they're all going to be wildcat wells. But, I mean, effectively, there's going to be a lot of dry holes trying to define, you know, where the shale is productive. There won't be any local jobs to drill a wildcat well. You're not going to have a casting call, you know, town in Chenango County. When you're in the exploratory phase, and most of that area will be in the exploratory phase, and it will remain as such for years. Of course, there's no tax, and they're going to not. If you don't have a road use ordinance, that's like, you know, y'all come and get it, because they will not pay to fix that road if they're going out there doing their prospecting for gas cover. Now, obviously the offsets to all this, and there's been some good studies done on appraisal districts in the Barnett Shale in Texas already. The closer you live to one of these suckers, I mean, your house value is going to go down, period. Unless your house is, you know, a motel. And it's going to go up. It's going to drive out tourism, clean industry. Those costs are going to go up. EMS, police, fire. And if you don't, and the DEC has no tax on this, I mean, the state of New York has no tax on gas production, so it's likely that local communities are going to get stuck cleaning the mess up. Yep. You know, Jeanette Barth and they do a better job on going into the details of what the costs are. Now, the DEC, that's the title of it, that's the DEC. The DEC has literally the worst setbacks of a gas well from you name it, in the United States. This is now Pennsylvania passed that kind of jinxie fee. This is the only state, this is one of the few places on the planet Earth where gas production is tax exempt by the state. I mean, there's no place like that in South Africa. In South America or Africa, no place, and nowhere else now in the United States. So the state has no money for the activity, no direct income off this activity. And all those old ex-Enron accountants, they will game numbers until none of these companies will pay a state income tax. They're not that stupid. This is the one that really gets me. I know this is kind of anecdotal. There's no seismic regs in this state. I went to look and they asked guys, where are the seismic regs? And there aren't any. And I mean, in other words, you could shoot a shot hole, seismic test, out in that parking lot. You could shoot it anywhere. You could run seismic shot holes around this church and go kaboom, you know, set it off. And there's no regs in the state that prohibit it. Nothing. And, you know, if you compare it to other states, they have seismic regs in Louisiana because they shoot seismic in the Bight. They have seismic regs that prohibit shooting seismic from a certain distance from a boat. In fact, I remember, you can't shoot seismic 1,000 feet from a boat in the state of Louisiana. So, you know, you'd be better off if you're a boat in Louisiana. And they got a dozen of these guys, poor devils, over in Albany. They're supposed to, you know, ride herd on this. Good luck. Go. This is go to that, but I basically, some of these are county regs, they're state regs, whatnot. Go. This dude's telling me I'm shot on time. Basically, the idea here is you get for the frackers, you get the town to do nothing. No road use ordinance, no land use ordinance. Pretend like the DEC is going to and you also you get people to collaborate. You get collaborators to basically turn the keys of the town over to the frackers. You know, they'll say, well, it's going to jobs for Texans. You're going to sell you out, is what it amounts to. They'll sell you out so you don't have a road use ordinance. They'll sell you out so you don't have a land use ordinance. They'll collaborate. Go. Moratoriums, even in Texas, there's no reason not to have one. Given what you know what's coming, and given what you know how sorry the regs are, I mean, that's a minimum. Go. The other thing you can do, this is the way it's done in most states, the town, under its zoning ordinance, can establish a setback. The setback of the DEC from a house is 100 feet. You say, you know, like in Midland, it's 1,500 feet. In Alberta, it's a mile. So you said, no, in Vestal, the setback for a gas well is going to be a half mile. Why? Well, because Chip told me so. You can prohibit by zone. That's very common. Can't frag a well, can't drill a well in a residential district. Very common. Noise, steep slope, whatever. You're not dependent on the DEC. You can go through their list. The SGICE, you know, is just a generic statement. It's not hard rules and regulations. You go through, you see what would be appropriate rules and regulations, and you do it in the context of land use. Okay. Or you can prohibit it, you know. Those knuckleheads over there, you know, they did it. It's total, it's simple, it's effective, it's legal, and you don't have to really depend on what the DEC does or doesn't do. That's what I would do. I would do that until I saw how this thing evolved, regulatory-wise and technology-wise. Remember, they haven't been confronted with this kind of terrain before. The closest they come to it is parts of Arkansas and Louisiana. They were unprepared for these problems. Go. And you got to do it now. And if you need to, you need to get yourself a new board. Get a board that's not indolent, that's not made up of collaborators. Get a board that'll do something. Get a board that do something that a town in Texas or New Mexico would do. I mean, for God's sakes. And yeah, you got to get rid of that guy. He's pretty well shot. You know, do him a favor. He needs to retire. He needs to get well. Get the hell rid of him. That's my name, my age, and that's where I live. Okay, that's it. Thank you.